The growing trend in sports nutrition is that every athlete's body is unique. At the Gatorade Sports Science Institute, we are working to help athletes and their influencers better understand these differences so they can better fuel their bodies. GSSI has a variety of tools to accomplish this, from testing the unique attributes of each athlete to nutrition personalization programs and educational outreach. GSSI is striving to make sure athletes and their influencers are more informed about their nutritional needs than ever before. GSSI is also an educational resource for sports health professionals, athletic trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, registered dietitians and sports scientists all turn to GSSI to gain insights into the latest research and strategies that they can put to use with their own athletes. Whether it's in the lab or on the field, online or offline, GSSI is giving athletes and their influencers an invaluable look at how nutrition and hydration can change their game, help them reach their goals, and become the best they can be.
Be the best that you can be. You heard that right. Once again, I say good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Gatorade Sports Science Institute Webinar Series 2021. Woo-hoo-hoo! Oh yeah, oh yeah. Ako po si Chicky Reyes, ang inyong abang lingkod. And I will be with you for about an hour and a half para po pag-usapan ulit ang mga bagay-bagay sa ating second episode. A little bit, let's go back a bit 2 weeks ago, okay? If I'm not mistaken, okay? The start of July, we were able to showcase sa inyo a beginner's guide to cycling. For our second episode, this is something that I am excited to bring to you guys because this topic, all of us could actually relate to it dahil ginawa po natin ito eh. Simula nung nag-start yung pandemic nung March of 2020, we all adjusted and adapted to this setup. And I'm sure you guys would like to find out certain questions. How am I gonna keep on doing that, Chicky? How am I going to keep the interest level when I do this? Itong pag-uusapan natin. So hang in there because I'm gonna introduce our topic. Sige na, sabihin ko na rin, training at home. Yan yung pag-uusapan natin for this afternoon. And I'm sure you'd like to find out, can I keep on doing that without getting bored? What other tips can I get? How can I keep my body into it for the next so months pa? Hindi natin alam, di ba? So hang in there, folks. We'll be talking about that. But before we dive into the meat of our episode 2, allow me to refresh your memories muna, no? On what GSSI is and what this webinar series is all about. Okay, so GSSI started as Gatorade Exercise Physiology Lab way back in 1985 before it became the Gatorade Sports Science Institute that we know today. And GSSI's long-standing mission is to help athletes and sports enthusiasts globally to optimize their health and performance through research and education in hydration and nutrition science. Bringing sports science beyond the lab, GSSI aims to continuously find innovative ways to spread the science of hydration and nutrition to coaches, kanino pa ho, sa nutritionists, athletes, and sports communities all over the world. And so, in an effort to reach more sports enthusiasts despite obvious limitations, here we are today in the Gatorade Philippines Facebook Live for another GSSI webinar focused on sports and wellness. Now, yung mga topics po natin led by our scientists and experts. Okay, speaking about sports and wellness, today we're going to put emphasis on an activity that was somewhat stipulated to most of us since the lockdown happened. Sinabi ko na ho yan kanina, ito yung training at home. While we might say, I have done that, Chick, ginawa ko na yan, been through that, teka lang, kasi marami pa tayong pwedeng matutunan. With GSSI, we aim to bring a different experience by providing an aid to those who've been training at home, but are curious to know, no, how they can step it up a notch. Ito yung sinasabi ko, yung pagandahin pa natin, pagawin pa natin more exciting. And further, stretch your knowledge, our knowledge, by imparting relevant information on training, nutrition, hydration, and much more. And I promise to you guys, our guests today will definitely give you a lot of things to na you can put into your training at home game, no, and make it better. So, for today, ladies and gents, ano ba ang ating pag-uusapan? What will be our lineup for this afternoon? Here we go. Home exercise training, adapting to the pandemic. We have Coach Kale Alvarez will be leading the discussion there. And then, nutrition and hydration for training at home. We have Mr. Liam Brown. After that, obviously, I'll open the floor to everyone. I would like you guys to ask questions and engage with us, di ba? Para makuha natin yung mga sagot from our speakers and pick their brains further. And then after that, we have a special segment towards the end of the show wherein we'll have this interview with an NBA player from the Orlando Magic, Cole Anthony. Loaded afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, for our second episode today. So with that, I'd like to invite all of you to please send your questions regarding these topics by giving your comments below. Okay, and I would be glad to discuss these during the Q&A and open discussion portion. And take note, selected questions will receive special prizes, merch from Gatorade, like the bike bottle. I'm sure marami sa inyo pumapadyak pa rin dyan. You'd love to have this. Okay. Also, our Gatorade socks in partnership with Vamos. We're going to give this out too. And my personal favorite, ayan, the Gatorade backpack. Ooh, lots of pockets. You can use this when you're allowed to travel already or go on your training outside, up north or down south. Then, for those who would like to receive their certificates of attendance, please make sure you stay with us hanggang sa dulo po ng show. Kailangan matapos yung show because we will be flashing a QR code at the end of the show for you to sign up and then answer a very, very quick survey. Plus, if you're able to pre-register to this event and you complete the survey, we are going to raffle off not one, not two, not three, but 5 special slots for a free consultation, free session with one of our respected speakers today. And also, please, at the end, okay, watch out dahil meron pa tayong fun na interaction dyan na may mga, in the spirit of giving ako ngayon, okay? I'll be asking questions about the presentations that you'll witness or watch today, and then you'll get a chance to win more of these products, okay? More of these merch from Gatorade. Okay, here we go. So without any further ado, I know you guys are ready with your pens and papers and probably your gadgets there. It's a little bit over 4 in the afternoon. I'd like to start with our first topic as I'll introduce to you our speaker, who is a strength and conditioning specialist, has a bachelor's degree in sports science, physical education with the University of the Philippines, a former head coach of Kaya Football Club, and currently the founder and head of strength and conditioning of Kineticor Philippines. And take note, he was a member of our national team, football national team lang naman, all right? From 1997 all the way to 2013. Ladies and gentlemen, for our first speaker, let me present to you Coach Kale Alvarez. Woohoo! Hi, Coach. Good afternoon.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Chicky, for that wonderful introduction. So good afternoon to all our viewers. So welcome to today's episode. And today I will be discussing home exercise training and how we are able to adapt during the pandemic. So, okay, so let's start. So first off, you want to ask yourself, are you doing home exercises to maintain your pre-pandemic exercise routine? Or, next please, if you're doing, or if you're going to do this, of course, as a new routine. So, okay, so our home exercises or online training has, of course, its benefits and challenges. So, of course, let's start with our benefits. So, We all know that physical activity is one of the main components of healthy living. This has been discussed and showed by the World Health Organization. Next, of course, as being in lockdown, this has put some stress on our mental state. Uh, and doing home exercises may improve mental health. It is also easier for the elderly population. Why? Because they don't need to go out. It's right there at home. And it's less expensive. Although, let me put a caveat on that. That depends if you will set up your own home gym. Then that takes away the less expensive part. But at least you have your home gym. That's a very, very good investment. And of course, lastly, the flexibility in time and location. So when you exercise at home or you do your online training, you can literally do this anytime or any part of your house. If you have a yard, if you have a gym in your condominium, any part of your house. Okay, so let's move on. Next, please. Okay, let's discuss some challenges during the lockdown. So, social isolation is, I would say, the number one challenge here because human beings are social animals. So we want to be around our friends, our teammates. If you're an athlete and you're in a team setting, and a lot of people when they work out, it really is more of a social endeavor. Okay, and it just makes it easier and more fun for them to do exercise when they are around their friends. Okay, and of course, next up is equipment limitation. As I've mentioned, some will be able to buy their own equipment or set up their own home gym, but not everybody will have the resources to do so, or leading to the next limitation, space. If you don't have enough space, then that really is a challenge. Because if you want to put in a squat rack and you don't have that much floor area where you can place it, then it really does become a challenge. Okay, and of course, next, home distractions. Being at home has the most uh, type of distractions that you can just have. I mean, if you have a family, you have your wife and kids, or your husband with you, your parents, your siblings, your nephews, your uncles, your niece. So it's just there's just so many distractions. So that's just talking about the people in your family. Of course, there you have your TV, you have your laptop, you have your fridge. It's right right inside your kitchen. So it's so easy to get distracted. And being distracted will, of course, talking about the next challenge, will come in the self-discipline. Okay, a lot of us will say, "I want to do this. I want to be able to achieve my goals by working at home, working out from home." But again, during the lockdown or with the limitations of your equipment and space, it's just hard to be disciplined and motivated as well. So this will be some sort of an intrinsic thing for a lot of us, because if you're not preparing for anything, like for example, if you're an athlete, you are working out in preparation for a competition. So you're training. If you're not an athlete, most probably is you're preparing for a beach body, but there's no beaches open for the time being, or only a few are open, then that takes away the motivation to work out. And of course, lastly, technical difficulties. So when I say technical difficulties, we will be able to discuss this on our more challenges, which I will discuss on the next, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is where more challenges come in, because we don't know, or there are actually several options on doing home exercises. So some strategies may include own exercise routines, So this is where we don't need to ask help from anybody or guidance, and just rely on our own experience or what we have seen. So the risk factor in doing this is pretty high, um, most especially if we do not have that a good solid foundation and experience. Okay, moving on, of course, fitness applications. So these apps are easily downloaded. Some are free, some are paid apps. So you can follow these apps and register for some exercise programs or routines, and then you just follow it. Some may have a 30-day challenge. Some may have uh, some challenges against other friends. So these are done individually, but can be done as a group. Okay, and of course, our last, we have our web-based training. This is where mostly, or I would say, has been there or has been present even prior to the pandemic. Because if you guys remember, we can actually purchase some DVDs, or you can watch YouTube videos and watch your favorite influencers and follow their routines. Or on the other hand, if you want to go on the professional route, you can hire an online coach or join online classes. So again, so these are some of the options that you can choose from. And again, why do I say it's part of the challenges? Because again, if you are fresh into the exercise routine, then you don't know which one to take. So I guess the best way to do it is to try each and every options that you have available and see what works best for you. Okay, next slide, please. All right. So again, starting on home exercise routines. So you want to ask these questions. So is this my first time to do my exercise routines? What level am I? Am I a beginner? Am I fit enough? Okay. So what equipment can I use? So this in this question, if you can answer that you can be creative in the equipment that you can use, then that'll be great. Okay. And of course, what available space do I have? And what strategy will I choose, as what we just discussed a few slides ago. So after you've answered these questions, now you can move on and know and start actually your routine. So again, whether you're a beginner or you're just continuing a certain routine that has been stopped again due to the lockdown, then just move forward. Again, I've mentioned, choose the best one, the best strategy that works, and stick to it. Okay, so all right, next slide, please. Okay, we have to identify also age categories. So we need to start with the children and adolescents. Why do I want to start with them? Because these age group are actually the most active, because you want to have children be children. Children will be moving every time. You don't want to have them sit down the whole day and watch Netflix, watch YouTube, or anything that just stops them from moving around. So for children and adolescents, we want to be able to have them an average of 60 minutes a day of moderate to vigorous intensity, and should do muscle strengthening activities at least 3 days a week. Okay, when I mention this, I'm sure a lot would still ask, isn't it dangerous for children to start strength training? Or isn't it bad for them because they will not grow? Uh, and contrary, it is actually better for them to start strengthening and to do continuous exercises as they age and progress, because children actually need that supplement for them to be able to grow better. Okay, in the answering the question if it's okay to do strength training and not stunt growth. Yes, it's okay. It's more on the child's cognitive ability to realize or understand the benefits and, of course, the risk involved in strength training. Because if the children can understand the risks involved, then you can start them on strength training. If not, I would suggest it's more of a plaything, more into just avoiding any children getting hurt or injured. Okay, next, please. So, still with children and adolescents, we want when we are able to keep them active, strength gains occur with at least 8 weeks of 2 to 3 sessions a week of resistance training. So, you want to keep it consistent. And of course, not because you started training, the effects will be abrupt. Okay, increase in muscular strength, power, and local muscular endurance. So these are the benefits that children can get when they do regular exercise routines. And of course, some health benefits include cardiovascular fitness, body composition, bone mineral density, and mental health. So it's not just about playing or just having them do exercise. It actually gives them a more holistic development, not just again in their physical but in their mental state as well. Okay, so next please. Of course, after children we have our adults ages 18 to 64 years. So in this age, we should be able to do 150 to 300 minutes of moderate aerobic physical activities, or cut it in half, 75 to 150 minutes of vigorous physical activities, or an equivalent combination of both. So I say just find the right mix for you for this one. If you feel like just doing moderate aerobic exercises, then go for it. Or if you want to go a little more harder and more intensive, then go for it as well. Okay, so muscle strengthening activities should be at least twice a week. So this is just good to maintain if you already have or develop muscular strength, or if you're just starting, this is a good starting point rather than just doing it once a week, wherein the benefits will not be shown as much as you want it to be. Okay, next slide, please. And of course, for the older adults or our seniors, 65 years and up. So basically, the routine or what we want to achieve here is the same as the adults, but we want to be able to emphasize on functional balance and strength. And this will be able to prevent any unwanted falls. So for the older adults, falling is actually the main thing that we want to avoid. Okay, and of course, muscle strength and aerobic fitness have been strongly linked to functional independence in older adults without disabilities. Okay, so please take note, without disabilities. And increased physical activity showed improvement in auditory attention and cognitive processing speed. So, you know what they say, if you don't use it, you lose it. And that is true. So, actually, regardless of age, it's not too late to start. So, just make sure you stay within the parameters of strength training or exercises. Okay. All right. So, having discussed the age category, now we move on. Okay. Next slide, please. To what we can do at home. Regardless your fitness level, whether you're a newbie or not, or advanced, whether you're an athlete or not, sticking to the basic movement patterns or the safest way to go in terms of working out at home. So let's start, of course, with the squat exercise. So these have several variations actually in all the exercise that we'll be discussing. You just find what best works. Doesn't have to be, if for example you're at level 1 or you're a newbie, you will start with level 0 or level 1, okay, in terms of the exercises. So find an exercise. If you feel like you can do it, go try it out. If it's a little too much, go regress, find a different exercise that is more suitable for you, and of course with the ability that you have. Or if it's too easy, you can progress right away. So some examples that I've listed here: if you have a barbell, you can do a barbell back squat, of course a barbell front squat, some sumo squats with some makeshift equipment such as water bottles, or what I've used before, a car battery. We can also do goblet squats, one leg squats. Again, doesn't have to be in this order. Just find a squat exercise that suits you well. Um, since we mentioned some age category a while ago, I want to emphasize on a squat exercise for the elderly. This is called the sit to stand. So it's just as easy as sitting down on a chair and standing up. So you don't need that much equipment, just a chair. So it's very, very easy. Okay, let's next slide, please. Of course, after squat, we have the hinge. All right, so when we say hinge, we want to focus on the hips. So this is where we do a flexion of the hips and then going back up for extension. So I've written some examples here: the Romanian deadlift, or RDL for short, some hip thrusts, and a one leg RDL. Okay, so in the hinge exercise, I want to emphasize on how you should put your weight distribution. It's not just bending forward. It's all about transferring the load onto your hips and hamstrings to be able to avoid back pain. And of course, you want to be able to keep your spine at neutral position. So you want to avoid arching up or hyper extending the spine. Just be conscious about your form. If you have a mirror, it's best to do it in front of a mirror so you can check your form. In this exercise, a lot of people may do it abruptly or with improper form. That may lead to, again, as mentioned, back pains. Okay, next slide, please. Of course, we have our lunges. So what I have here are your walking lunges, your reverse lunges, your curtsy lunges. So actually, in lunges, just do all directions. So that'll be an ideal way in terms of progressing or regressing the exercise, and finding the challenge in wherein, for example, I know I have weakness in going backwards or going towards the side, then I will try and do a side lunge or a back lunge just to be able to improve my mobility or my movement in that direction. Next slide, please. Of course, if we have lower body exercises, we should not forget our upper body exercises as well. So we have our upper body push. So we have your push-ups, your shoulder presses, your chest presses, your tricep dips. So when we say upper body push, it doesn't end with just your chest. So you have your vertical pushes wherein you go up over your head, and then you have your horizontal pushes wherein you, when you're standing up, we push forward. which focuses more on your chest. So this is just basically varying your body position, wherein the inclination or the direction is either horizontal or vertical. Okay, next please. And of course, we have upper body pull. So it's as easy as pulling on a cable or a band for you to be able to do a row, or if you have a pull up bar, and of course, a bicep curl. So these exercises will be able to strengthen or balance out your upper body strength. Okay, next, please. And of course, we can't forget rotation. So in this movement, you want to be able to again try to be aware of how your spine or your torso is positioned. And when we do our rotations, like for example, the Russian twist, as written here, a lot of us just tend to just move the hands from side to side. So the rotation factor or the rotation of the spine is not activated, and you want to be able to make sure that when we do your rotation, you bring your shoulder, your back, and your trunk with it, not just moving your hands side to side. Okay, so we have here our wood choppers, again, Russian twist and medicine ball rotational throws. Okay, next, please. And of course, last in the basic movement patterns is our gait. So, what is gait? It's just basically how we walk, how we run. Okay, so some exercises include step ups, one leg heel raises or calf raises, marches, um, or if any of you are familiar with the core exercise, suitcase walks, then that also is a focus on gait training. Okay, next, please. Okay, so we have already mentioned our challenges, our all of those choices in exercises. So we want to be able to maintain a training routine. So the best way to do it is to keep it part of your lifestyle. Instead of having a routine that feels like a chore, you want to be able to maintain it by number one, setting a goal. Okay, I know it's hard to set a goal in these times because again, it's still limited in where we can go, what we can do. But let's set up some small goals and realistic goals that we want to achieve. The best or the easiest goal that we want is keeping fit and healthy. Of course, it's the pandemic is still going. We just want to be able to battle and make sure to keep our immune systems high. Okay, so and next is to identify ways to exercise. So when I say identify, just choose what works best for you. And of course, with that, and you want to be able to choose what you enjoy. Okay, I know I've discussed a lot about strength training, and some people will not enjoy strength training. That's fine. Just after our 2 weeks ago, we had our cycling episode, and that's actually one of the two sports that have risen during the past year because of the pandemic. So cycling and running, you can either choose one or both, and keep doing it. Just set a routine, set a schedule, and of course, since I mentioned schedule, number four, set a schedule. Make sure you monitor and do progression. So when I say set a schedule, you want to make sure to set a realistic schedule. Don't set a schedule like, okay, I'm going to start training at 5 in the morning every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. First question is, will you wake up? Right? So you want to be able to set a realistic schedule that you can stick with. And of course, you want to be able to monitor what you've been doing so that you can see the progress that you have been uh, gaining from your exercises. And of course, progression. So when I say progression, keep challenging yourself. So when you keep challenging yourself, you avoid getting bored. This also avoid being stagnated in a certain level, and this can actually be a way for you to challenge some of your peers or your family members, just to show where you have been, and then where you are now. So with that, I hope you guys have learned some tips on how to do exercises at home. And with that, thank you for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much again.
All right. Thank you very much, Coach Kale. I hope all of you give him, please, a virtual round of applause in your respective homes. I'm sure marami kayong tanong dyan. Hold on to your questions. Questions like, how do I spice up my training? Ako, sabihin ko, dagdagan nyo ng music yan, di ba? Para mas maganda. But please, write your questions down. Comment section na dyan sa ibaba. Type it, because if we get to choose your question, you get to win some of the cool merchandise coming from Gatorade. Okay, so type away your questions and we'll choose the questions later on. If we don't get to answer your questions live here on the show, we'll make sure that our social media team masagot din po yan, ha? As we move along our webinar series. All right, up next we have an experienced nutritionist from the GSSI family with a master's degree in sports nutrition from Liverpool John Moores University, and a former head of nutrition at Crew Alexandra Football Club. And he will be discussing or presenting nutrition for training at home. Remember, it's okay to exercise, but if you don't put the right things inside your body, then it's useless. Okay, moving or training at home if you don't have the proper nutrition. Ladies and gentlemen, our second speaker for this afternoon, I'd like to welcome Mr. Liam Brown.
Thank you very much, Cheeky, and thanks to all the viewers for tuning in to our GSSI webinars. Great to be here today with you all, and I look forward to sharing this presentation. So today's topic is a very relevant one, and I'll be discussing nutrition and hydration for training at home. So I'll begin the presentation by sharing some of the science behind recommendations for nutrition and hydration when exercising. I'll then discuss how to adapt these recommendations to suit your individual needs. And finally, I'll provide some practical tips for nutrition and hydration to implement when training at home. So to begin, ultimately the sports nutrition needs of an individual can be divided into three different categories: energy, hydration, and muscle structure. And this will be the format of the first section of today's presentation, starting with energy. So often when we talk about energy, we use the analogy of a car engine. And we know that when we need to add fuel to a car for the car to move, and the more fuel the car has, the further the car can go. But on the other hand, the human body, which is another high performance machine, is more complex and sophisticated. So like a car, we need to provide fuel before, during, and after exercise. And whilst the car engine uses just one kind of fuel, the engine of the body, or the muscles, runs best on different fuels, depending on the intensity and the duration of exercise and the training status of the individual. But in most cases, a blend of these fuels are used. So whilst we do use a combination of fuels, carbohydrates are going to be the primary fuel for muscle contraction during high intensity exercise and the predominant energy source for most activities. So this chart highlights the type of fuel you use, or the fuel utilization, over different exercise intensities. So here we can see that in general, at lower intensities on the left-hand side, our predominant fuel is going to be fat. However, as intensity increases towards the right-hand side, carbohydrate use for energy increases and the use of fat decreases. So as exercise intensity increases from when you're doing a light jog to a high intensity interval training session, for example, carbohydrate becomes the predominant source of fuel. But for the most part, you will be using a combination of these fuel sources. So as mentioned earlier, it's not only intensity of exercise that can determine what the body uses to fuel movement and exercise, but also the duration. And here we can see that this chart shows when you're exercising for shorter periods of time on the left-hand side, your body is mainly using muscle glycogen, which are your internal carbohydrate stores, as your fuel. And this decreases over time. And as the time you spend exercising increases, there's an increase in the amount of fat you use as fuel, as well as an increased reliance on blood glucose. And this really highlights the importance of carbohydrate consumption during longer duration exercise. To put this all together, research has shown that compared with consuming no carbohydrate around longer training sessions, when you do consume carbohydrate, your body can maintain high rates of carbohydrate oxidation or the use of carbohydrate as a fuel. Your ratings of perceived exertion may be reduced. You may have an increased endurance capacity and a delayed onset of fatigue. And finally, the consumption of carbohydrate has been shown to prevent hyperglycemia, which is low blood sugar levels. So now I've completed the carbohydrate section, I'll move on to hydration. And I've been looking at the temperature in the Philippines today, and I've seen it could hit as high as 32 degrees, and I could only wish it was that warm over here. But with these high temperatures, the focus on hydration really is important. So we know that the average human body is around 60% water, and water plays an important role in numerous physiological processes, including the excretion of waste, the transportation of oxygen and nutrients to the brain and the exercising muscles, and the regulation of body temperature, all of which can play a role in your performance. As water has these important roles in the body, it's important to talk about the effects of dehydration. Current literature suggests that if you lose 2% of your body mass as a result of sweating and not consuming an adequate amount of fuel, you may begin to see impaired performance. So, for example, impaired cognitive function, such as decision making, as well as impaired aerobic performance. And as the level of dehydration increases, symptoms may become more severe and can also begin to impact high intensity exercise and sport-specific skills. There are a few different methods to check your hydration status. One of the easiest you can do at home is to check the colour and the quantity of your urine. If it's larger in volume and more of a lemonade colour, you're likely hydrated, whilst if the volume is reduced and it's more colour than apple juice, you're likely dehydrated and need a drink. So whilst we can check how hydrated we are, we should also consider the different factors influencing your hydration status when training. So for example, your training status and training intensity can influence your hydration status. And as the temperature and humidity increase, your sweat rates will also increase. Similarly, the more clothes you wear during exercise, the more you may sweat and the quicker you may become dehydrated. And finally, the type of beverage you consume can impact the speed in which we absorb fluids and also the ability to retain the fluids that we consume. So as mentioned there, many factors contribute to the amount that we sweat during exercise. The reason we sweat is to prevent dangerous increases in body temperature. And when we sweat, this sweat evaporates, and this is the primary mechanism in which the body cools itself during exercise. The amount we sweat can really differ between individuals, but on average, sweat rates during exercise range between about 1 and 2 litres per hour. However, research from earlier this year found that sweat rates in recreational tropical native runners can be even higher given the higher temperatures seen in countries like the Philippines. So that covers hydration, and I'll now move on to muscle structure, where we move the focus towards protein. So protein really has a number of different functions in the body, ranging from supporting movement and muscle structure to supporting immune function and cell signaling, amongst many others that you can see on the slide. But if we consider muscles specifically, we know that your muscles are always turning over. And what this means is that they're in balance between muscle protein synthesis or muscle growth and muscle protein breakdown. And when you exercise, you break down the muscles, but this breakdown can play a role in then increasing muscle protein synthesis, given that you have enough amino acids from protein in the diet to aid the process. And this really highlights the importance of protein in muscle repair following exercise. So I'd recommend that protein should be incorporated into every sport nutrition recovery plan. And you should consider the 3 T's: the total amount, the timing, and the type of protein that we consume. In terms of timing, we know that the muscle is responsive to protein for up to 24 hours following training. And research has shown that the best way to consume protein throughout the day to support muscle protein synthesis is in around 20-gram portions every 3 to 4 hours, rather than larger portions less frequently. To support recovery, you could also consider consuming protein prior to sleep. And current evidence suggests that consuming 30 to 40 grams of casein before bed after a resistance training session results in an increase in muscle protein synthesis. And finally, if we consider the type of protein you want to be consuming, the ideal protein for muscle recovery will be a complete protein that's rich in the essential amino acid leucine. So leucine acts as the signal to initiate the process of muscle protein synthesis. The protein source should also be rapidly digested and absorbed. And complete protein sources include meat, fish, and dairy, amongst others. So if you think of foods commonly consumed in the Philippines, this might be chicken, pork, beef, or fish, for example. But complete protein sources can also be consumed via a combination of complementary sources, such as rice and beans, which may be helpful for vegetarians. So putting all of this together, before you exercise, you should focus on hydration and consuming carbohydrates for energy. During exercise, you should continue to focus on hydration and consume carbohydrate, such as a sports drink, if exercise will last greater than 60 minutes. And after exercise, it's important to replace what we've lost. So you should rehydrate and consume carbohydrate and protein for recovery. And with this in mind, an ideal recovery meal post-exercise will be something like chicken or fish for your protein, with noodles or rice for your carbohydrates, with a serving of vegetables on the side. So the next part of the presentation will focus on how to adapt nutrition requirements depending on your individual needs. And we'll begin with energy. So as we know, carbohydrate will likely be the predominant source of energy in the body, depending on the intensity and the duration of exercise. And with that in mind, in preparation for and recovery from exercise, you should consider adapting your carbohydrate intake to suit your individual needs. So we can see here, if you're planning on some light activity, you should aim for around 3 to 5 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram body mass per day. However, as the amount and intensity of the exercise increases, this can increase up to 8 to 12 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram body mass per day for very high levels of activity. These recommendations aim to ensure that your body has enough energy in the form of muscle and liver glycogen to fuel the exercise that you are doing. And these recommendations can be broken down further into pre, post, and during exercise recommendations, but I won't go into detail in this today, as Dr. Rebecca Randall discussed this in more detail in her presentation on nutrition for cycling, which you can find on the Gatorade Philippines Facebook page. When it comes to hydration during exercise, as I mentioned before, the aim is to consume enough fluid to ensure we lose no more than 2% of our pre-exercise body mass through sweat. However, it is normal to lose some weight during exercise as a result of dehydration. And the aim post-exercise is to replace 120 to 150% of the fluid lost through sweat. And we can find out how much fluid we lose through sweat by calculating our sweat rate. So to do this, we want to weigh yourselves pre-exercise, so for example 75 kilograms, and also post-exercise, so for example 74 kilograms. And we subtract our post-exercise body mass from our pre-exercise body mass. So in this case, it would be 75 kilograms minus 74 kilograms. We then add on the amount of fluid that you consumed. And in this case, let's say I did not consume any fluid during exercise. So as a result, during 1 hour of exercise, I lost 1 kilogram of body mass. This is equivalent to 1 litre, so my sweat rate would be 1 litre per hour. And with this loss of 1 kilogram of body mass during the exercise session, I would need to consume 1.2 to 1.5 litres of fluid to rehydrate. A fluid loss calculator can be found on the GSSI website if you wish to calculate yourself, and this is on the slide here. It's also important to note that as we sweat, we lose electrolytes, such as sodium, and replacing sodium is critical for rehydration. For example, it helps to stimulate drinking and subsequently helps to retain the fluid that has been consumed. So as mentioned earlier, sweat rates will differ between individuals and between exercise sessions due to factors such as heat and exercise intensity. So I recommend that each individual should be treated uniquely. For example, the more we sweat, the more fluid we require, and the saltier our sweat, the more sodium we require. Moving on next to protein. We know now that protein is important in muscle structure. It helps the body repair during exercise, following exercise, and it also supports metabolic adaptations to training. So the recommended dietary allowance for adults is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram body mass per day. But this is really the minimum amount, not the optimum amount. Due to the increased demands of exercise, the recommended intake for athletes is slightly greater than that of the general population, and the amount depends on the type of athlete and their goals. Recommended intakes may increase further during periods of intensified training or when energy intake is reduced. So with this in mind, it's recommended that athletes consume around 1.2 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram body mass per day. And finally, for this section, I have 2 examples of how we might put all of this together to adapt our nutrition strategy. So if we look at an individual focused on strength training, the aim may be to increase muscle mass. To do this, I suggest increasing calorie consumption, as both exercise and the process of muscle protein synthesis itself require calories. Could we go back 1 slide, please? Could we go back a slide, please? Thank you. So as we continue on strength training, carbohydrate and fat consumption should be medium to high, depending on exercise intensity and the duration of exercise to fuel activity and to meet the increased calorie demands. And finally, given the importance of dietary protein and muscle protein synthesis, protein consumption should be high. On the other hand, if we have an individual looking to reduce levels of body fat or fat mass, the nutrition strategy will be different. So in this case, we'll be looking to reduce calories below that of what we expend throughout the day to produce a negative energy balance. And to do this, we might lower carbohydrate and fat consumption, which will help reduce overall calories. But it's also important to remember that both calories and carbohydrate are key for performance, and so low carbohydrate diets around competition may impair performance. And finally, again, we have high protein intake. And the reason for this is try to reduce any loss in muscle mass as we exercise with a lower energy intake. So the last section of the presentation now from me is to provide some practical tips to put this into advice when practicing at home. So this study by Amar et al. In 2020 looked at the effects of COVID-19 home confinement on eating behaviour and physical activity, and it found that individuals were more likely to have an unhealthy diet or food, to be eating out of control, and to have a snack between meals or late at night compared to before COVID-19. And this really highlights the negative impact that COVID-19 may have had on individuals' diets, and is the reason that I'll provide these practical tips now. So in terms of the food that we eat, this is what will help us fuel and repair the body. And I think it's really important to plan in advance. So if you have an exercise schedule, you will know the planned intensity and the planned duration of your sessions. And as such, you can buy and prepare adequate food and meals in advance. To support this, I recommend taking a shopping list when you shop, so you can ensure you purchase the foods you require for the meals and snacks, rather than foods that you might not need for the week. The next bit of advice I would give would be to avoid snacking when bored. So this could lead to unhealthy habits and potentially overeating. Instead, aim to focus on eating meals spread throughout the day and consuming healthy snacks throughout the day to support your health and the demands of exercise. And when you do consume meals and snacks, it's important to focus on consuming many different coloured fruits and vegetables throughout the day. And you can think of this really as eating the rainbow. So the different colours will contain different polyphenols, different antioxidants, and vitamins and minerals, which are vital to support a healthy and active lifestyle. And finally, from me, I have some practical tips from hydrating at home. So firstly, I really recommend hydrating as a habit, rather than in response to thirst. Thirst may be an early indication of dehydration, so regular consumption throughout the day is recommended. And to support with this, it may be helpful to keep a cold glass of water, or a bottle of water, or carbohydrate beverage close by as you train at home. And personally, I'll always have a glass of water close by. And if needed, set regular reminders on your phone to remind you to hydrate throughout the day, particularly around exercise. And finally, it's not only fluids that support your hydration, but also foods. So products like fruits, vegetables, soups, and fish all contribute to our daily fluid intake. And on that note, that ends my presentation. So I'd like to thank you all for listening today.
Wow. Thank you very much, Mr. Liam Brown. And I was nodding towards the end of your presentation from start to end, because I too have my own water here right next to me. And it's true that you have to keep on hydrating yourself, especially when you're in a humid country like the Philippines. Okay, it's Q&A time. I'll bring in Liam and Coach Kayla once again, all three of us on your screens right now as gentlemen, first of all, Coach Kale, my virtual round of applause to you. Thank you for that presentation. Liam, to you as well.
Thank you.
Our viewers are asking if the two of you have nice smiles. Why don't you give us good smiles before we go with the Q&A? There you go. All right. Okay, Coach Kale, I'll go with you first. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll put in the first question here, and a very interesting question. I'm sure that you've conducted hundreds of online training and consultations, right? You've done that so many times, and you've done actual face-to-face consultations and trainings as well. Coach, how was the transition? What were your biggest challenges? All right, in engaging in this pivot, in this change from face to face to virtual? Because I'm sure if athletes or your students had to adjust, coaches had to adjust too. Coach Kale?
Yes, definitely. I would say my biggest challenge in transitioning from face to face to virtual is number one, the type of people that I train, meaning a lot of student athletes that I have been training for the past years have become dormant. I hate to
Mm-hmm.
admit it, but as I've mentioned in my presentation earlier, there's just too much distractions. With the transition of online schooling as well, it has been difficult. I mean, like for example, my son who goes on eighth grade, I actually don't see him that much when he's
Mm-hmm.
just in his room during his online classes. So it's just difficult for them to squeeze in that schedule to train actually. And I would say the shift in the people I train, I've gained a lot of seniors the past year because I
Uh-huh.
think they've realized that this is my chance to start my exercise routine. And since again, as mentioned in my presentation earlier, they don't need to leave the house. It's just there.
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, changes will always be there, right? Challenges will always be there. But the key there, Coach Kale, what I liked about your answer is that the quickness to adapt, the quickness to embrace the change and adhere to what the market demands right now. And I think you and all the other coaches out there watching us right now, allow us to give you a virtual round of applause for helping us,
Thank you.
helping
Thank
us
you.
in this trying times and trying to be fit, as you mentioned, also healthy. Liam, I jumped to you. Okay, earlier when you were mentioning about tips, I was shaking my head. I'm guilty of binge eating sometimes, at night when I go online movie watching with my family and the popcorn is there and the chips are there. And I said, is Liam referring to me or to a lot of people who are like me? But kidding aside, Liam, training at home can be very convenient, right? In multiple ways, in various ways, including, as I have mentioned, easy access to food, right? Especially with people like they have small spaces. The moment they're done, when they enter, the refrigerator is there. The cupboard is right next to the exercise area. My question to you now, Liam, is what do you advise our viewers, our friends who are training at home regarding discipline, about discipline when it comes to nutrition and food intake? It's tough, but we'd like to hear from you. I know it's easier said than done, but probably when it comes from a nutritionist like you, it's going to be biblical truth. Go ahead, Liam.
It's a very good question, a very good question. So I think the key really is being able to plan in advance and knowing your schedule and understanding what you're going to be doing on each day. And because of that, you can plan what you're going to be eating. And I think having that plan and understanding what you need personally helps you choose the right fuels for what you want. So first of all, that's going to be the best thing to do. So plan in advance and base it on your individual needs. But I think it's also important to say that you are allowed to treat yourself. You don't have to stay on that schedule all of the time. So you can treat yourself now and then. That is important. But also do make that plan and maybe make some changes to where you store the food in your house. So
Mm.
you might have a cupboard with your snacks in, and you might put your fruit bowl in front of that cupboard. So when you're hungry, you go and pick up a piece of fruit instead of one of the snacks. So there's little tips like that that you can think about as well, really.
I like how you answered that, Liam. First of all, you said it's okay to once in a while, go away from that program that you've made or a cheat day, perhaps, just to make sure that you don't lose it, you don't go insane. but also put those obstacles, right? I mean, put as many locks as you want for for the not so healthy food groups and put the fruits in front. I like that. Okay, I go back to Coach Kale. So Liam, I got one more question for you, right? Coach Kale, this one is coming from one of our viewers, and it's from Angelica actually. Coach, this is for you. If you want to build muscle for fat loss, will it matter if you start your workout with cardio exercises, then proceed to strength training, or should it be strength training first, then end with cardio workout? That is a fantastic question, Angelica. I like that question. So, Coach, ano yung kailangan mauna doon?
Yep. Okay. A fantastic question indeed. So I'll just answer it straight off the bat based on this the objective to build muscle. Since you said build muscle, it's ideal to make sure that when you do your strength training, your muscles are fresh. So I would say start with strength training and then do your cardio. Because if you start with your cardio before your strength training, tendency is you'll be tired and you won't be able to maximize possibly the load that you want to do on your strength routine. So again, with the focus on building muscle, I'd say start with strength training.
Okay, wow. Great answer there, Coach Kale. And Coach Kale, I'm sure people can search you on social media, right? Instagram and
Yes.
Facebook. So if you have more questions to Coach Kale, make sure that you
Yep.
follow him, and he'd be glad to answer questions. Liam, I jump back to you because we got this question from one of our viewers, and I can relate to this question actually because I do this. All right. The question is, what is your opinion with exercising at home in a fasted state? And let me jump into that question, Liam. I do the intermittent fasting, and I don't take breakfast. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I start eating at lunch, and in the morning I exercise without anything in my tummy. So your thoughts on that? Am I doing the wrong thing, the right thing? Should I stop it? Go ahead, Liam.
It's a good question, and I think again it needs to be really taken on that individual basis. So it depends what your personal aims are and what your exercise session is like as well. So if you're training for less than 60 minutes, you're not going to need carbohydrate to fuel that exercise session.
Okay.
But if you're training longer than an hour, then you're going to be wanting to focus on making sure you eat carbohydrate before the exercise session to ensure that you're getting the maximum performance out of your training session to see the benefit. So it really needs to be taken on an individual basis, I think, depending on the training session that you're having.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Liam. But I guess my key takeaway in your answer is less than 60, probably it's okay, right? But more than 60 minutes, then obviously you need to put something inside your body. Otherwise, you might run the risk of fainting and not being able to continue with your exercise. I go back to Coach Kale. Coach Kale. Oh, I love this question because it's about my favorite sport, basketball. Coach, with basketball courts closed or off limits? I know I haven't played ball since March 9 of 2020. What are the best basketball related exercises to keep us fit and ready? This is in preparation for when we are allowed to go back and play again. Now, I'm going to jump again into that question, Coach Kale. You can only do so many dribbling and passing on the wall, and then it gets so boring and repetitive. But what else, Coach? What else can we do for us basketball aficionados? All Pinoys, I believe, are basketball aficionados.
Definitely,
Coach,
definitely. I would say, okay, basketball is a sport wherein you keep on moving. The basketball court is not that big, wherein you have a huge space to just run in one direction. So basketball has several directions and explosive, may I add. And with that focus, strengthen on focus strengthening single leg exercises. Why do I say that? Because when you go back to training, for sure, either your coach will tell you to do certain drills, whether or not you as an individual are ready to be able to execute those drills or not, because the coach will probably not have the idea of how each player or each individual has prepared in terms of going back into the sport. So start with strengthening, focusing on single leg exercises. So one leg squats, one leg RDLs, single calf raises, the such. And then basketball has a lot of running. Again, I mentioned changing direction and of course jumping. So you want to be able to do those movement as well. So whether you have a basketball with you or not, you should be able to at least do those movements. So do jumps. So that's with both your feet. Do hops. That's one leg. So taking off with one leg, landing on the same leg, and then you also want to do some bounds. So jumping on from your left leg, landing on your right, and vice versa. And of course, some direction changes. So lateral movements, forward, backward, pivoting. That doesn't need much space in terms of executing those drills. So again, whether you have a basketball with you or not, it's wise to do those drills for you to be able to come back to the sport without getting hurt.
Love the answer, Coach Kale. And in fact, I'm going to add a little bit extra spice in your answer. While doing those exercises, you can watch, of course, the PBA tomorrow. It's starting tomorrow. While watching your hardcore heroes like L.A. Tenorio, right? Who drinks a lot of Gatorade to make sure that he doesn't cramp up. So do those exercises while watching the games starting tomorrow. I go back to Liam. Last question for this segment. Liam, how might nutritional recommendations differ for junior athletes? Would the amount of protein or carbs per kilogram body mass be different? So probably a little bit technical here. Go ahead, Liam.
Yeah, that's a great question, really. I think one of the things to consider is that, as Coach Kale said before, children will be children and children will run around all day. So children will be exercising in school. They will then be exercising during their training afterwards. So that's already double the amount of training. They also then need the energy for their growth and development as they're young. So energy demands can be quite high for children. So it is really important that they're mainly consuming enough calories for their growth and development and to fuel the exercise. In terms of protein, again, it's really important for growth and development there, and carbohydrates for their energy. So they have enough energy to do that running around, be that at school or while they're training. So really the key for the youth athlete is going to be getting enough calories in, but then really making sure they have that balanced diet as well of having the protein, having the carbohydrates. In terms of grams per kilogram, of course, the amount they will be eating will be less because they weigh less. But it is key that as they exercise more, for example, they eat more carbohydrates. As they exercise less, they won't need as much.
Great answer, Liam. And I'm sure a lot of questions are still coming in. And to our viewers, don't worry. Our social media team will collate all those questions. They'll give it to Gatorade Philippines and we'll make sure that they answer all these questions. Unfortunately, I have to say goodbye to our two guest speakers. But before I do so, we're still in this together, right? In this solving this pandemic together. And would love to hear from Coach Kale and Liam your parting messages to our viewers who are watching us right now. Coach Kale, I'll start with you.
So as I've mentioned before, don't make exercise a chore. Make it part of your lifestyle so that you'll be able to enjoy it and reap all the benefits with it.
Short and sweet. Yeah. Thank you very much, Coach Kale Alvarez. How about you, Liam?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Cheeky. It's been great to present today and share the floor with Coach Kale. So thank you again, and thanks everyone for listening, and eat well and stay well.
short and sweet as well. Liam Brown, Coach Kale Alvarez, thank you very much. Maraming salamat, and I'll let you go as we move on to the next portion of our program. Gentlemen, thank you and have a good day. Okay,
Thanks,
I'd like
guys.
to
Thank you.
remind our viewers, make sure that you still stay with us, because at the end of the show we have a Q&A portion again. All right, wherein we'll be asking questions about the presentations of our speakers, and if you get the right answers, you'll get prizes and also that certificate of attendance. We'll be doing that at the end of the show. Loaded yung ating discussion in the first hour of our afternoon. And I'm sure you guys learned a lot from both Coach Kale and Liam. Ako rin, marami akong natutunan, and maraming tips na pwede tayong gawin, no, para sa ating training at home. And I'm sure marami pa kayong matututunan with our next guest athlete as part of today's GSSI webinar. Bakit kanyo? Dahil professional athlete ito, high-level athlete, but even if he is already at that state, he was able to give good tips and able to relate to the situation of training at home. He is an NBA professional player, yung aking nakapanayam, who is also a first-round NBA draft pick in 2020. Anong posisyon niya? Rookie point guard from the Orlando Magic, averaging 12.9 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, and 4.7 dimes or assists per game. And he is considered among the top 10 NBA rookies. And gaya na sinabi ko, nagkaroon ako ng chance, napakaswerte ko, at na-interview ko itong young and very articulate na manlalaro ng Orlando Magic. I got to speak with Mr. Cole Anthony, and he shared with us yung kanyang point of view, yung kanyang pananaw sa training at home. So, everyone na nasa bahay, sit back, relax, and watch this. So again, let me say good day, everyone, and it's nice to have all of you here watching virtually. And as always, we've prepared something very special this day for all of you, for all the basketball fans out there, especially the NBA fans, because we have right now a very young gentleman who's been playing well in the NBA. And I'd like to welcome to our show, our webinar series here, Cole Anthony of the Orlando Magic. Hello, Cole. How are you doing? And welcome to the GSSI, or Gatorade Sports Science Institute webinar series. And we're excited to have you here. And I hope you're doing okay from wherever you are right now.
Yeah, I'm doing awesome. I'm very happy to be here right now. I'm actually back home in New York with my family, so I'm doing tremendous.
You know, first things first, I'm quite interested because what's keeping you busy? I know it's off season for you right now, but what's keeping Cole Anthony busy while waiting for the next season to start?
So I took, after the season ended, our season ended back in May 16th, actually. After that season, I took those last 2 weeks of May off. And so as soon as May ended, June started, I got right back to my regularly scheduled program, just working out. So I've just been hitting the gym real hard, just in the basketball gym, been working out my body and just trying to stay conditioned. So I've just been, this is a very important summer, you know, had a pretty solid first year and just want to have an even better second year. So I've just been really working as hard as I can.
You know, here in the Philippines, unfortunately, we still have a pretty much high restriction level here in the country due to the pandemic. But I'm sure your fans would like to hear. Also, how's the state there in your place? Is everything okay? Getting better? How are you facing the pandemic? How are you facing this situation right now?
Yeah, so actually, I know from as far as I know, in most of the states, like a lot of the COVID restrictions have been lifted. So everything's kind of getting back to normal. It's not all the way there yet, but it's like it's very, very close. So it's really, I'm personally very happy that we're kind of getting back to a state of normalness back over here. So I've just been really just enjoying this time.
Oh, that's nice to hear. Nice to hear that things are getting better from your area. I mentioned to you before we started this interview that unfortunately here in the Philippines, we're not really allowed to go out yet, right? And train or even have fun. Even the weekend warriors, no basketball, no hoops, no 5-on-5 for us here. Not even 1-on-1 on our courts. And then I know it's really bad. We're missing the game terribly. But a lot of people would try to train inside, exercise inside the respective homes, while
Yep.
sheltering in place. And it's such a challenge. You know that it's a challenge, really. I would like to hear from you. I'm sure you had your share of
Yeah.
training at home. What challenges did you encounter, Cole, and how did you address these?
Yeah, so I mean, we quarantined here for a while. We had these same restrictions you guys had. Obviously, not as long, which is really sucks for you guys. But we just I hope you guys get out of that soon. Hope you guys get everything under control. But we had dealt with it for a little bit over here too, and so in that time, it's just I was quarantined here with my family, and I had my little brother, little sister here. I think my cousin ended up staying with us for a while, and so what we did, there was days because we didn't want to get out of shape. I mean, we didn't know how long we were going to be kind of in so locked up. So we just did whatever we can inside. So whether that was us doing push-ups, we was doing sit-ups, we kind of put together our own programs just to help us stay in shape. And so we made sure every single day we was going to get sweat in and just getting some good quality work in, just because we weren't able to do anything.
I'd like to pick your brains further. You said that you worked out with the family, everyone there at home. Did you come up with any special equipments, or did you? Because I would see some videos from other athletes, like they would make they would use their socks as an imaginary basketball, their laundry bin as their imaginary hoop. In your case, would like to hear that from you. What did you use as your
So
inside the house?
So we weren't that creative. We didn't end up making up like no made up mini hoops or anything like that. But we just we watched a lot of basketball. That was one. We tried to train the mind the best we can. So we were just watching a bunch of film on basketball, watching old games, stuff like that. And then at the same time, for our workouts, we didn't really have any equipment. We just didn't really have much access to stuff in the house. So we would just kind of use our own body weight. We use each other. I know that we had some stuff where we had one thing where we grab onto each other's ankles, lay down, and have our legs go up and down. Just so it's a really good ab exercise. So we were doing stuff like that, and we were just really consistent with it, and it had us in pretty good shape. So we were ready whenever we got that call. We were able to go outside.
When we do our training at home, or exercises at home, Cole, our friend would be the internet, right? You'll research on YouTube, you'll research on best practices of coaches. But for you, for Cole Anthony, what would be your best in-house training, if I were to put it that way, that you would say, oh, it did help me. It did help me when I started hitting the court again?
For me personally, I'd say it kind of sounds kind of simple. I'd probably just say the push-ups. I know it's something that everyone's done for a while, but when you do them in bulk, you do them every single day, it really starts to take a toll on your body, and it really starts to help. Because there's so many different types of push-ups you can do. If you change your position of your hands slightly, it attacks a whole new part of your body. So just the push-ups was probably the main thing that I say were really helpful to me. It got me a lot stronger, and so I was able to get back on the court. I was able to muscle dudes, just really get dudes out the way.
Interesting to find out what would be your most number of reps in push-ups? Your personal record.
My personal record of push-ups in a row without stopping?
Yeah.
So I'd probably say I've done 50. That's probably the most.
Oh,
I'm not the best at push-ups, but it was just something that we were super consistent with.
50. Oh no, I mean,
yeah,
the full extension, right?
Full extension. So we do more than those, but that'd just be at one time, get a little bit of rest, and then get right back to it.
Oh, okay. Now, people would say, okay, you do your in-house training, your in-house exercises, body weight. A lot of coaches would say that you don't need equipment. Use your body as your equipment. For you, Cole, what would you consider, apart from maintaining that level of fitness, what other perks did you get from the training at home? Did it help you mentally as well? Did you help other aspects of your life when you did in-house training?
Let's see. I'd say I think it did help me mentally. It made me a lot stronger. Just because mentally I'm talking. So just being at home just really having such a strict amount of things you're able to have access to, able to do, is just it tests you mentally, and a lot of people will tell you that could drive you crazy, just mentally, just not being able to do what you want every single day, just being so restricted.
Yeah.
So just from watching all that basketball, doing all that, it made me mentally so much stronger, and it really just made me a lot stronger mentally.
And sometimes, right, when you're stuck at home and you're doing something repetitively every day, the temptations of having those chips on the side or going outside of your diet, it comes in and out. How are you able to beat that and not fall into that trap of staying away from your game plan, of being focused both on physical and even your diet and your nutrition?
Yeah, I mean, that's another mental test right there. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I had a few cheat days here and there where I could get a little something in there. I love me some chocolate chip cookies. So, but it was definitely tough, but it was just something that you gotta mentally just tell yourself, yo, you can't do that. You're already here quarantining, not getting the normal strength and conditioning regimen that you would usually get. So you fall down that path and just start getting into eating sweets, chips, candy every single day. That's start getting bigger, and then you get out of shape. And then when you get out of quarantine, you gotta play catch up. And so we just was really just strict on just not allowing me, and then also my family were just really strict about not letting us get too tempted by stuff like that, because we definitely had it in the house.
So, I mean, we're getting real talk from you here, Cole. You mentioned that you won't lie, that the chocolate chip cookie there is just something that sometimes you would really put your hand inside that cookie, try and get that that chocolate chip cookie. You mentioned nutrition, and you said that you simply have to fight it mentally. You have to stay focused, stay on track. I'll put in another word there: nutrition and hydration. Okay, because it seems that nutrition is an integral part of your training program and your regimen. And would you say the same thing for hydration?
Oh yeah, I'd say hydration is just as important, if not more important. You gotta, just especially when you're training hard, you're getting a good sweat every day. You have to make sure you get those fluids back in your body. You have to. It's so important. You don't let parts of your body get dehydrated, because that's when you start getting hurt. You don't get enough water in, you start cramping. That's when your body's it's not at full power. You might be at 85, 90%, and that's when some starts not feeling right, some starts breaking down. So it's always making sure that you doing both. They're both equally as important. Just for people who exert a high level, who just do stuff like playing in games, exerts a lot of energy, and so you just obviously need to replenish that. So just getting stuff like sports drinks, protein shakes, stuff along those lines that help replenish carbohydrates and just electrolytes. It's super important, because water is not always going to be enough. You need stuff that's specifically made to help replenish all that. And just thank for the technology we have today. It's just that we have drinks and stuff like that always can help you with that.
So apart from having that skill that you already have, that fantastic skill that you already have, you believe that nutrition and the proper hydration, if you put them all together, that's what makes you a fantastic athlete. Yes?
That helps you be a fantastic athlete, and then not just be a fantastic athlete, maintain being a fantastic athlete for a long period of time.
A lot of young athletes are watching us right now, Cole, and a lot of them are basketball players. I've seen a lot of videos of kids, doing those dribbling exercises at home, or sometimes even having that imaginary goal on the wall. But I would also hear from these young athletes that I miss the actual game. I miss passing it to a human being and getting that ball back and actually playing offense and defense. Yeah. What would be your advice to these young athletes?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it's just look, you're going to miss it 100%. Continue to miss that stuff, and really just learn to appreciate whatever it is you play: football, basketball, baseball, whatever you do. Really learn to appreciate that stuff, just because, look, you never know when you won't be able to play that game anymore. So especially in this time right now when you're not allowed to play it, truly appreciate it, so that when you are able to get that game back that you love so much, you don't take it for granted. You get all you can from it. So just truly appreciate all that stuff that you love to do. Just don't take it for granted. So when you get back out there, when the restrictions are lifted, hopefully soon, in the Philippines. Y'all get out there, man. Y'all just have as much fun as y'all can and just love the game.
Wow, very well said. And I had a grand time. I hope you had a grand time too. Thank you very much, Cole,
I appreciate you.
for allowing us to interview you. We appreciate that you allotted time. I know that we don't have the same time zones, but you allotted time for us, and we truly appreciate it. So, ladies and
Yeah, I
gentlemen,
appreciate you.
I present to you from the Orlando Magic, number 50 at point guard, Cole Anthony, and rest assured that you have the whole Philippines cheering for you and your team, the Orlando Magic, this coming season. Thank you very much, Cole.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate you guys, man.
Oh, yan ha. Sana po natuwa kayo dahil ako tumuntuwa ako when I had that time to speak with him, and I hope dun sa mga hindi pa Orlando Magic fans, maging Orlando Magic fans na tayo para cheer natin yan si Cole Anthony. So Cole, if you're watching from wherever you are, thank you for being with us during that interview. All right, nangako ako sa inyo that I'll be giving out prizes. So, kanina, namili kami ng questions. Our social media team will reach out to you kung kayo yung napiling question. Pero ngayon, we will be flashing 3 questions na may kinalaman sa presentations ng ating mga guest speakers. And the first person, okay, the first person who could answer any of those 3 questions correctly, syempre, mag-uwi kayo ng premyo. Sana, gagawin natin. If you already won one, syempre, yung iba, sa iba natin bibigay. So what are the prizes? Bike bottle. Okay? Gatorade bike bottle. And don't forget, nothing beats Gatorade. And then, meron tayong Gatorade socks in partnership with Vamos. Sa pinakamahusay gumawa ng apparel din. And also, my personal favorite, the Gatorade backpack. Ito, marami hong bulsa ito. If we're allowed to travel or train already, maganda to kung mapapanalunan ninyo. So, first question. You have to type in your answers in the comment section, the comments box natin. Kailangan dyan po. Unahan po ito. And our social media team will be the one deciding kung sino po yung mananalo. And we won't be announcing anymore kung sino po yung mananalo dito sa show, but you'll get what I call this, you'll get we'll reach out to you, our social media team will reach out to you at sasabihin sa inyo kung sino po ang nanalo. Okay, so Direk, if you're ready, first question, and we'll give out this, ito first Gatorade bottle tayo. The clothing you wear affects your sweat rate. True or false? Go! Type away! Dali. You have to type. I'll give you a few more seconds. In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. Hindi ko muna sasagutin yan. Question number 2 for the pair of socks. Gatorade socks in partnership with Vamos. Our second question, Direct. You can flash it already. What is the main fuel for high-intensity exercise? What's the main fuel for high-intensity exercise? You got 10 seconds if you want to get this pair of socks, Gatorade socks. Again, in partnership with Vamos. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom! Tapos na. All right. Third and final question. Drum roll. Go ahead, Direct. Ilabas na yan. What's the world's #1 sports drink that rehydrates, replenishes, and refuels the body? Huwag na kayo magkamali dyan, ha? Nandyan na yung sagot. Go! Correct spelling, ha? Don't forget to capitalize the first letter. If you don't capitalize the first letter, you're not gonna win. Huh? All right. Looking at my chat box here, mukhang nakuha na, no? People were able to answer. I think so. Teka lang. We'll just check quickly rito. Do I still need to give a clue? Mukhang di na eh. Okay na. So, to all the winners, our social media team will reach out to you and kung sino nanalo nung bike bottle, nung medyas, nung socks, tsaka nung bag, malalaman nyo po. Reminder, everyone, watch till the end of our show for instructions on how to get that certificate of attendance. Okay, a QR code will be flashed at the end of this live video. Ito pinapanood nyo ngayon. So ang ibig sabihin po niyan, ito, accessible lang po ito at limited time. Meaning, when this recording of this video ay in-upload na sa Gatorade Facebook page, by that time, yung registration for certificates is closed na. So make sure po na panoodin nyo hanggang dulo dahil mamaya lalabas namin yung QR code at yung registration link para magamit nyo. After nyan, pag na-upload na yan, wala na, hindi na kayo makakuha ng certificate of attendance. Also, for the selected questions from our viewers, as mentioned, hintayin nyo yung aming social media team to reach out to you for your digits, for your details on how to claim your prizes. And I'd like to invite all of you for our next session, our third episode of our GSSI Webinar Series 2021 sa July 29. Okay, pa-flash namin yan. July 29, don't forget, kung nagkaroon tayo ng Beginner's Guide to Cycling, nagkaroon tayo ng Training at Home, for our third episode, it's going to be Beginner's Guide to Running. One of my favorite exercises as well. Okay? So again, on behalf of all my friends here at Gatorade, of course, si Marcia, si Miss Melay, si Sir Mikey, our guests today, Liam Brown, Coach Kale Alvarez, ako po si Chicky Reyes, nagsasabing maraming salamat po sa inyong panonood ng ating GSSI Philippines Webinar Series 2021. And I hope to see you on July 29 for the Beginner's Guide to Running. In the meantime, please stay safe, stay home, pray, stay healthy, and we'll see you all on July 29. Bye, guys.